people have a copy of the blockchain. So when somebody goes in and one copy of the blockchain and makes a change, everybody can see that change. So just, like the fundamental first purpose of a blockchain is a public distributed piece of information where everybody can see if one person makes a change. The second thing, and this I'm not as good as explaining, so you're just going to have to kind of take my word for it. But the second thing that a blockchain does, because of its just like basic technical nature, is it creates singular digital assets. So you can say, like this is the original digital asset. In the same way, like somebody paints the Mona Lisa, there's only one original Mona Lisa. And that original Mona Lisa is, worth a gigantic amount of money. You might have prints of the Mona Lisa, that are also worth a large amount of money, but not as much as the original. And you might just have photographs of the Mona Lisa. And in some context, it might be hard to tell them apart. Blockchain allows you to create an original singular digital thing. And once you can do that, it's easier for digital things to have value because they're the original. And that's really that's the fundamental innovation that allows you to have money. The problem with all digital things is that, they're copyable and it's hard to, tell one from the other. In fact, usually they're identical. But because of blockchain, we can have only one of something. And because we have only one of something, we're capable of having money. And so that is what makes Bitcoin a thing that can be singular and can be thought of as digital gold. And the main question that I think, is not totally answered by the blockchain community, by the Bitcoin community, is everybody believes that eventually it will just be universally accepted that Bitcoin is the same as gold. It's a thing that we all recognize has value, that is singular, and that we can swap out for money. I think I'm turning it over to Bill now. Go ahead, Bill.
Great, thank you. That was good, Josh, and thanks. It's always a great honor to speak with a home chapter of Nashville. So I'll first start by saying that number one, I'm definitely not an expert in blockchain. I think the purpose here for me is to share my journey in learning about this asset class. It's a pretty complex topic, but the first thing to understand is this really is a revolution. And I think that for me, I've been following emerging trends for a long time, and it is always about timing. And if we could go back to just some examples of that, after we started EO in '94, went after the internet around '97, went after baby boomers, went after biomedical.com in 2000. And am I muted? Oh no, sorry, I just saw this thing pop up on the screen there. Anyway, these were all trends that I was following. And so I think what the thing today with blockchain is if I ask you, what would it mean if you could fully understand the changes that the internet and mobile phones were going to bring, but in advance? And going back to 1994, before anyone else knew, that knowledge would be pretty transformative. Your ability to invest wisely over the next 25 years would be pretty strong if you had that knowledge back then. And what I would say that now there is a change of similar order and magnitude with that was like the internet and mobile phones, but that is with blockchain now. And so this is where I started I moved to San Francisco in 2016, and everyone was talking about blockchain. And I was working on a drone tech startup, and nobody was, everybody was kind of focused on the whole blockchain. One night of.
You're muted again, Bill.
Sorry about that. I don't know why it keeps happening here, but I
Weird.
met the co-founder of Cash, and the guy that introduced me mistakenly said that the drone tech I was working on was on the blockchain. I didn't know what the blockchain was. And so, but all of a sudden he's all interested in talking to me, and I finally went home. I went home on a Saturday, and I locked myself in my apartment, and I didn't come out until Tuesday. And I started watching TED Talks. I started watching YouTube videos. I started reading white papers. By Tuesday morning, I downloaded my first digital wallet and bought my first Bitcoin for $3,800. So I then started to call back here to friends and saying, listen, now this thing is really, I really feel like this is going to be something that's going to be really impactful and big. All that said, fast forward a little bit, I go to Necker Cup, and which is one of Richard Branson's charities. And while I'm there, ended up, there was a guy doing a talk about his currency called Metal, and said that anybody that makes a donation to the Virgin Unite he would match with this new cryptocurrency he had. So I made a donation of $50,000 and received $50,000 in what's called Metal currency directly after. By the time I got home, and this was in December, by the time I got home and I got the keys to that wallet and opened it back up, that currency was worth about $100,000. And that's when I was just absolutely blown away. And so it's kind of started from there. And then the ICOs are just like IPOs, except you don't have all the expenses that Wall Street normally charges. And the ICO stuff just went bonkers. People were making money everywhere. I knew one guy that put in 225 grand into something called Tron. In October, he takes out 8.5 million in March. It is pure insanity. And so along the way there, I ended up getting involved with Silicon Valley Blockchain Society as a co-founder. And my partner there, David Ellington, ran the city's pension fund, San Francisco. And so he had a lot of experience with the institutions, and his bet was that the institutions are coming, but they're not going to come for a while. And the more we can get prepared and invest in infrastructure before it comes, the more this is going to be a really big opportunity. So we started hosting these meetings, and that was watching the price of Bitcoin go up and down like it did. I will tell you, I got in at 3,800. I panicked and got out at 4,800, and it's not something that you can time. So what I would say is that, while this is an investment advice, I buy and hold now. I don't sell. This is a long term for me. It is a long term.
Muted again.
I have never had that happen before. So where I see this kind of going from here, and I'm going to share my screen real quick, just because I really like this this slide, even though it's outdated, because I've heard all these arguments now on really where it's going. Jamie Dimon was, who's CEO of JP Morgan. You can kind of look at his predictions going kind of across over time. And while this is still outdated, JP Morgan is definitely on board now with cryptocurrency. But I really like this category for a number of reasons. But one is that it isn't, when they say decentralization, we are talking about removal of the middleman. And just like with banking, if I walk into your store and try to do a transaction with you right now, it has to go through a third party, and they charge a lot of money for that.
Hey, Bill, I'm gonna jump in and move us along.
Sorry about that. But go ahead.
Okay, buddy. And so, you know, as you can see, you know, Bill's depth of this asset class is awesome. So I'm gonna give you a little bit different perspective, which is that in the application of blockchain, it's also a platform for your identity. And so so I'm gonna switch. Can you stop sharing your screen there, Bill?
I thought.
So what's happened over this past COVID situation is now, and can you see my screen, the My Colorado? Or you see my email?
We see your My Colorado.
Okay, so what's happened over this COVID situation is that lots of states and school districts have leaned into the idea that, you know, how do you leverage a digital identity? And so My Colorado is a version of that, where Colorado residents can put their driver's license in a digital wallet, and whenever they do that, then basically they get pulled over. They hold up a QR code to their window. The officer scans that and then gets all the information verified about their identity. Or they're walking into a bar, they can you know, just show a QR code to the front door. They scan that and they have a verifiable identity from that user. And so what may also be helpful in kind of this next version of things is I'm going to show you how you write stuff to the blockchain. So this is a teacher portfolio in Tennessee, and I can kind of select the things that I want to put reference to on the chain. So I'm not actually writing any personal identifiable data to the chain. I'm writing a record of this transaction to the chain. So I'm saying that as the state of Tennessee, I'm going to give this data to a mobile wallet that's at this address. And so once I do that, I just hit start, and then it goes out to the chain. It starts creating that relationship between the state and this address and moving that data into what's called IPFS, or the Interplanetary File System, which is another kind of chain-like system there. And so then I can go in and I can see what happened. I can see that, yes, there was data written. So this is the transaction hash that Josh was talking about. It was sent from this hash, and it was sent to this hash. Or this wallet, sorry. And so this is all verifiable independently of any centralized authority. And that's really what the pure decentralists are truly pushing, is kind of driving towards that pure decentralist model of, we don't need the authority to be telling us that this is my identity. You need to be an owner of that. And finally, what's happening, and we've built a COVID credential reporting platform as well. We've built e-transcript extension for state of North Dakota, that K-12 graduates can publish all their transcript data to a wallet. But for COVID, you can create a verifiable credential that says, you know, you go to the airport, they say, hey, we want to make sure you have your vaccine. You scan a QR code, verified, rock and roll. So you don't have to carry around paper. They don't have to trust that paper, and so on and so forth. So this is a real world application of how blockchain can be used, not only as this kind of asset class that has some kind of monetary value, but actually leveraging that distributed ledger for identity and portability of credentials. And I'll stop right there. So happy to take questions for the panel. So Costas, the My Colorado is actually built on Amazon's blockchain, which is not a side chain of Ethereum. It is actually a Hyperledger Indy version.
Okay.
I'll stop sharing. So we threw a ton of information at you. Just kind of pick your lane.
I don't know
Yeah,
if
so
you're
this
more
is
interested in the tech or the retail of it. Go ahead.
Go ahead, Brandon.
yeah, I was just going to say it's so fascinating. And thanks again to our panel. We've heard about the blockchain technology as utilized in the cryptocurrency space as an asset class, and we've also heard about the blockchain technology used for digital identification and all of these other applications. My question would be, and I'm so curious if you guys have any other thoughts or speculation on how we might see the application of a blockchain technology utilized in our everyday lives in another 5 or 10 years.
So I'll jump in. I mean, there are now currently, I believe, that I know of, there's 7 different statewide initiatives for a digital identity or digital citizenship at the state level. And so that is where I think, and obviously this COVID credential has a ton of momentum, and I think that's probably the first real world application is COVID vaccination and credentials.
But I have no idea, basically, but a couple of things it seems like make a lot of sense. One is, like the identity stuff that Marty's doing is theoretically a lot better than physical identity. In other words, the blockchain ought to work, at a mature point in such a way that it's harder to fake an ID digitally than it is to fake an ID physically. So identity makes a ton of sense. Healthcare records might be the biggest thing for everybody in this room, just because we're all in Nashville. There are plenty of healthcare companies trying to figure out how they can make it so all your records are more easily transferable through the blockchain. But like there's some, I guess the other thing that would be really big would be if we all started using the money. And one thing I guess we haven't mentioned is that, that there are cryptocurrency stable coins, which are tied to the price of the dollar or other currencies around the world, so that you don't see this kind of dramatic fluctuation every day. And that should make those coins usable in the same way that you use dollars or use a credit card. So that stuff could be used. Chris Sloan, maybe if you want to talk about real estate for a second or automobiles, I think that'd be cool. You probably know more about it than I do.
Yeah, I mean, blockchain works really well anytime you've got a bunch of records that need to be linked together, and for all the reasons that were explained earlier, that I think that you explained about how the chain part of the blockchain. And so it's a really effective mechanism for things like recording changes to title in a building or a piece of real property. And in fact, it's probably more effective than the current process of recording it in the local county clerk's office or wherever you would need to record it. Because with blockchain, once the transaction's accepted, there's no chance for an error because of the way the thing's constructed. So it would be actually, in theory at least, an almost total replacement for current government, real estate filings. They've done a test on this in Chicago, actually. I haven't checked on it recently, but they actually did a test on this in Chicago that was pretty exciting. So stay tuned.
I think
really cool.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Bill.
Go ahead. All I was going to say is that, I think probably some of the things that are coming and are on the horizon is that central banks beginning to move currency onto a blockchain. So the thing with Bitcoin is it can't be turned off. It can't be taken from you. It's It is it's already gotten scale. It's already gotten mass. So as these, I think China is definitely going to be out in front of a lot of other central banks doing this. But the fiat that we have in our pocket, that cash, I would say that one day is probably going to be in a museum, and it is probably one of the most outdated accounting systems in the world. So I think that it's, you know, all of us transacting through digital currency is something over the next 10 years that all of us are going to be getting used to at some point.
Brandon, I'd like to take Elizabeth's question about the lack of hacking ability for blockchain. One thing I think that's important to note is while blockchain is a thing that is nearly impossible to hack without people knowing, that doesn't mean it's not possible to hack. And at this point, when you have currency in a private wallet, that is something that can be stolen. If somebody knows your credentials for that wallet, not only can it be stolen, it's very hard to recover. There are a few blockchains that have the ability so far to prove that somebody got into your wallet and stole your money. On sort of the like a related note for that too, blockchain makes it so it's a lot easier to send money without anybody know who's sending it, because you've got these hash functions that are that are identifying, and you've got wallets that are essentially identifying by long strings of numbers and letters as well. You don't know who's behind those wallets. You don't know who owns those wallets at this point. That may change in different ways. It may not change in different ways. But you should not assume because you have money in a blockchain wallet that money is safe. In a lot of ways, right now, that money is less safe.
And continuing on that point, Joe mentioned in the chat how easy it is to lose if you forget your credentials. And I'm sure many of us read the article recently about the poor old chap who had about, I think, $240 million worth of Bitcoin, and he had forgotten his credentials. And it's as if I was trying to explain it to my parents. It's like as if someone buried a bunch of gold bars and then forgot where they buried them. I think that's like the easiest analogy that I could come up with. So yeah, it's certainly the security of it has a double-edged sword, if you will. Yeah, there's a really interesting special or documentary thing on this technology on, I think it's on Amazon Prime, by the way. And there's like, yeah, it's really interesting. So for anyone who wants to continue on that, go check it out. So we've got some good questions here. Murray Allen asks, how can we invest in blockchain? Invest in the companies that are building the technology, like the blockchain businesses, or leveraging the technology? Or we also heard about investing in cryptocurrency as an asset class. What do you guys think on the panel for the best ways for us average people to be investing in this technology?
I would just start with what I always tell people is as far as investing in the currencies, just start on Coinbase. I used to tell everybody, put in $50, set up a digital wallet, and start to move money between wallets, and just, don't do anything that's going to be too outrageous if you're wanting to go in beyond that. But Coinbase offers a lot of different currencies that are out there. They're also FDIC insured, which what that really means is that they provide your information to the government. So that's why they were able to get the FDIC insurance on that. As far as the infrastructure and what I was investing in were infrastructure projects. You could, there's a lot of panels like this that are taking place. I know we do it for SVBS. So if you went to svbs.one and signed up for one of those coming up. We have presenters every month that are presenting for raising capital into their projects. So that would be one way.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bill is by far the most experienced at investing in this area, but there certainly are new startups constantly, and generally, like the blockchain community around the country and around the world is extremely welcoming. So if you spend some time educating yourself and then you just you get in forums and you show up for online meetups, you can meet founders pretty easily and start thinking about potentially investing if that's the sort of thing you're interested in. My experience is I had some partners who were early Ethereum investors, and we built a trading platform. And what I can say in my experience was that one, the technology was difficult. It's new technology. It's not entirely new, but it's pretty new technology. And so there aren't a ton of engineers in the world who know how to deal with the technology. And secondly, it's extremely highly regulated in this country. And if you're going an unregulated route, that to me feels very dangerous. So
Yes.
From what I've found from our company, we need to be a broker dealer. We need to be an ATS. We need to be regulated by New York State and get a BIT license. We need to be regulated by FINRA. So the experience of making something for me involved a gigantic amount of regulatory education that I was not remotely close to having before, and still don't really have. We just hired a lot of lawyers.
Now, I might even add to that, and that's good, but I might add to the fact that where we are today with Bitcoin, just the price of Bitcoin and following that, thing to keep in mind is that there is a tidal wave of institutional capital that's coming. And right now, as we sit, there's a lot of predictions that Bitcoin is going to be over 100,000 by the end of this year. But just keep in mind what's coming. And because a lot of the infrastructure now has gone into place, and now what's coming is the hedge funds are coming, the public company treasuries are coming, the insurance companies are coming, the pension funds are coming, the RIAs are coming, Bitcoin ETF is coming, and the banks and brokerage firms are coming. And when all of that gets here, it's going to look really, really crazy when Bitcoin starts passing 100,000, possibly gets to 500,000. And then when the professional traders come in and start trading it, there's a lot of people that think that's when we might start to see even a $1 million Bitcoin. So this is obviously a long way out there, but that's some of the things that people are predicting.
And I'm just going to sidetrack that as well as, while we see this Bitcoin number going huge, the great thing about something like a Coinbase is that you can watch also the other cryptocurrencies and how they're tracking. So, things like a Bitcoin Cash or something like Ethereum that move in the same way as Bitcoin, but it doesn't track directly. And then you have, as Bill mentioned with the Tron situation, you have, just all of a sudden the market flooded with crypto, and then it gains momentum. So there's definitely some pump and dump on the side chains that you have to be wary of, but they're also really, really interesting.
Yeah, I think that, as Bill mentioned, the institutional capital that's coming into this space has been just so fascinating to watch. And I'm very curious to see the continual progression of this as an asset class. And I'll end it there. We have an interesting question here from Baxter, which is who enforces or corrects a known hack? Which law enforcement agency? And is that even relevant with something that is intentionally designed to be so decentralized?
So let's talk about a hack real quick. So in order to hack most cryptographic systems, you have to control over 51% of the network. So what happens is whenever I send Josh that $1,000, there are millions of computers that get a request that say, hey, do you know this mobile wallet? Do you know Josh? And do you know Marty? And if you do, that's great. Do you agree that they want to exchange this money? And you have to have up 30 or 50 different machines that agree that yes, that is a transaction that's going to happen. And then once that occurs, then the transaction happens. So hacking the chain is again very, very difficult. But traditional hacking, which is, hey, I need to work on your computer, can I have your password, is still the available. I mean, you can still hack anything anywhere doing that, and that is the number one hack out there. Is, hey, I need to check something on your computer real quick, can I have your password? So as far as who enforces or corrects, so each chain has kind of a governing body, and they'll look into it, but I don't know of anyone that's really done any actual. They're just kind of like, you're screwed, good luck. But Bill, you may have more insight on that.
Well, the SEC. So that's
for the registered assets.
Yeah, that's generally who has. I'm about to find out. I was an investor in Telegram, and then when they returned the money, the broker that I went through, they sent my money to they sent me what's called US Tether, and they sent it to my Ether wallet, which means I can never get it. So these are the type things that happen. I can't get to it. So that's who I've got to get in touch with over it, though, because there's this person, as it turns out, it's already been investigated for other things, and that might have been by design.
So Stephanie, you've got your hand up here, and we'd love to hear your thoughts here for a minute as well.
Thank you, Brandon. I wanted to go back to the idea of what the use cases might be in the next few years. I think you asked that. And there were a couple of very appropriate use cases, which were the documentation of real estate and government documents, identity documents for government, which probably would take more time to implement because you have to convince the governments to do that. But both of those, in my mind, are blockchain ready, in the sense that it takes advantage of this sequencing in the blockchain so that you transact, and every step along that process is logged in the block. So it's very good for work processes that need to be recorded at every step. And so I'm working on a blockchain startup that is geared toward payment processes at the very base level, which is the simplest thing that you can think about, because payments have to happen in order if you're going to keep track of what's a fair payment and what's not. And then on top of that, some of the things that we're targeting are things where the sequence matters, and not using a centralized so intermediary would be a problem. So in our case, it's IoT. The sequence matters when you think about IoT telemetry being logged into a blockchain, right? You don't want to know that the temperature for a vaccine is going up rather than reading that backwards, that you think it's going down. So that's what I would emphasize about blockchain use cases. It's when you want to know that the sequence of the data is assured.
Thank you for sharing that, Stephanie. Yeah, I think I'm perhaps most interested in seeing blockchain leveraged as it pertains to intellectual property. So I have a background in the music business, and if you think about a single song, there are, I mean, and this is just one tiny little example, but there are so many people involved. There are multiple songwriters, multiple musicians, producers, engineers, artists, and each of those people is entitled to a very small piece of different ownership in the IP. And right now, that process is kind of I mean, it's a nightmare. It's notoriously bad. And something like blockchain technology could completely revolutionize the way that intellectual property data and royalties and all of that is leveraged and managed, which is really, really fascinating. So now we're about time for our small group breakouts. So each group, as we break you out, go ahead and assign a moderator. I guess you will have to do that yourselves. You can argue over who gets to be the moderator for your small group. Have a scribe take some quick notes to share. And the two prompt questions that we have for you are, what is the most important thing about this technology? And where would you see a unique application for it? Again, this panel, we really, really appreciate the three of you sharing your time with us. We're going to come back after, but a huge thank you to you guys for making time to share. Thank you to everyone from our chapter for the questions and for tuning in. Please do stay on. The exchange piece of this is a big part of it. So we're going to break you out into small groups, and we will all come back for the last 2 minutes just before we end this.